Be good, my grandson begged, tied to a tree. It was my kid's perfect wife-enforcing discipline. I filmed it all. Now they face my son's dark secret. The cicadas buzzing, a sign that summer was officially here, resonated throughout Worthington, a tranquil, mostly suburban neighborhood just outside of Columbus, Ohio. Even though the sun had just dipped below the horizon, the stifling humidity still stuck to my skin. I had just gotten back to my house after working in my backyard, as I always do. I made sure my little tomato plants were doing okay and filled up the bird feeder again. Even though I'm 62, I stuck to the same detailed schedule of checking on my garden when the day was done, a custom I kept from my time teaching at Upper Arlington High School. The two-story colonial home, built back in the 1970s, was bought when my husband John and I were still young and just starting out. Beautiful seasonal flowers adorned the well-kept front porch. On many weekends, I'd see the neighborhood kids getting together to make cookies. But things had become somewhat solitary since John unexpectedly passed away from a heart attack 5 years prior. I had been a member of First Community Church for a long time, so my life mostly consisted of volunteering at the Germania Singing and Sports Society and going to the Worthington Farmers Market to shop. Since I retired from my 35-year teaching career 2 years ago, the hours I spent in the garden became my most substantial source of solace. That night at about 9 p.m., after parking my Toyota Camry in the driveway and returning inside, I was getting ready to pull my bedroom curtains closed when I heard a slight sound. Usually I would have disregarded that noise, but my teacher's intuition, developed from my time working with kids who struggled, told me something wasn't quite right. Rather than my past weekends with my husband, when we'd visit places like Schiller Park to stroll around or take pictures at Franklin Park Conservatory, I was living by myself now and had become very aware of even the smallest changes in my environment. I cautiously peeked through the window coverings and I could see people in the backyard. The security lights seemed to be turned off, with only the moon and the lights from other homes giving off a faint light over the yard. Once in a while, fireflies winked in the blackness. This was an intruder situation. My years of experience kicked in and I immediately went on high alert. I grabbed my cell phone and silently moved out the back door. Hiding behind the storage shed, I cautiously assessed what was happening. The aroma of magnolia filled the uneasy air. What I saw sent a chill down my spine. Beneath the giant oak tree, lit up by the moon, were 3 people, and tied to the tree was a little figure, my grandson Noah, just 3 years old, in his pajamas. His head was a small shape, his hands tied behind his back. The moon reflected on his damp pajamas, and there were shining tear stains on his face. The answer to his quiet behavior lately and his nervousness around his parents was so obvious now. "I'll be good," a small, shaky voice broke through the quiet of the night. "Please, no more." I saw Daniel, Sarah's son, stepping into the frame. He's a perfectionist architect. Everyone at his workplace respects him, and he seemingly plays the part of the perfect dad. Despite his professional success, Sarah always felt the profound rage and wariness that simmered under his facade. It appears that the strictness is finally yielding some results. Then I heard a woman's voice, Amanda, Noah's mother, a parenting influencer who had a huge following. This woman's public image generated over $100,000 each year thanks to her #PerfectFamily brand, along with a show of commitment to doing good works. Yet the sound of her voice now was nothing like the sugary persona she put on display for social media. It was harsh and distant. It seems like I am hearing a lot of her voice. It is as if he has finally learned some decorum. My hands started to shake as I grabbed my phone, disabled the flash, and began filming. Hidden in the shadows, I was gathering evidence while I felt my heart breaking, observing my grandson's distress against the illuminated windows of nearby houses. This proof is absolutely essential. I kept telling myself that as tears welled up in my eyes. The picture of their family enjoying Sunday dinners with pot roast and green bean casserole immediately felt like a horrible, distorted dream. "Stay here and think about it tonight. We will return in half an hour." Daniel's voice cut through the silence of the evening. Amanda directed her phone's beam of light towards Noah. The light revealed the absolute terror etched on his young features. "Come on, say it. I'm thinking about it one more time." Her voice was completely devoid of the friendly energy she usually showed during her online videos. A weary, quiet voice answered with a simple yes. "I'm taking some time to think things over." All of a sudden, the cicadas stopped chirping and everything became still. As this quiet settled, I could feel my heart beating fast. During all the years I'd spent teaching kids with problems, this was the most helpless I'd ever felt. Footsteps came across the grass and faded inside. I held my breath and waited, hiding behind the garden table. The only thing breaking through the weird quiet was the sound of night birds at the bird feeder. Once I knew they were gone, I cautiously came out from behind the shed and went to Noah. In the glow of the moon, I could see his little body was shaking. The rope that tied his wrists was tighter than I thought, and it just broke my heart. Gently touching the rope, I whispered, "It's all right, darling. I'm going to help you." "Grandma, Grandma." His surprised voice made me quickly quiet him. Hopping the lights from the nearby houses wouldn't see this terrible thing. "Don't say anything," I said. "Let's keep this our secret for now." I put Noah back where he was and hid behind the shed. The smell of the magnolia was in the air, almost like it was trying to cover up this awful situation. About half an hour later, just like he said he would, Daniel showed up and took Noah back in. I watched with a heavy feeling in my chest. That night after midnight, shaky hands worked on a cell phone in my bedroom. I decided to contact a person I'd been secretly communicating with for the past 15 years. I steeled myself, then composed a message to accompany the video. The woman's name was Katie Morrison. She had battled with drug addiction during the opioid epidemic, but she had completely turned her life around. Now she worked as a senior counselor at a rehab center, assisting numerous patients with their recovery. For a decade and a half, I'd secretly received updates about my son, along with anonymous donations of $1,000 each year on Daniel's birthday. It was me, Sarah, his biological mother. My hands trembled. Gazing at the send button on my phone's display, I remembered the decision I had made 15 years earlier. The support stemmed from my early life enthusiasm. Now those well-intentioned deceptions seemed to be exacting a significant toll. See this video. Meet your grandson, Noah. I can't handle this any longer. The message was instantly read, and a reply popped up right away. "No, Daniel, my son, all of our choices were mistakes. I'll begin working on this immediately. No one will be getting away from this. But carefully, I have contacts. I'll stick to the correct protocols." That night, Katie started taking action. She reached out to the Franklin County Children's Services hotline, open around the clock, and started the process of securing the video as evidence. She requested that an emergency response team be assembled and prepared paperwork for the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services. Because of her background and knowledge as a senior counselor, she created the most successful intervention plan. I was in my bedroom, which was dimly lit, looking out the window. As I recalled the joyful times I shared with John, I kept on praying about what the next day held for us. Back when I was working at Upper Arlington High School 15 years ago, sunlight was coming into the staff room through the window, highlighting a newspaper on the desk. It said that the wife of a local construction company's president had been arrested for having drugs. My eyes landed on that specific headline, and I knew who the woman in the picture was. It was Katie Morrison, Daniel's mother. She was being charged with illegal possession and use of opioids. The article indicated she had already been dependent for quite a while. My thoughts immediately went back to a time a few weeks earlier. After my tutoring sessions, this young man unexpectedly came into my classroom. It was Daniel, who was going to architectural school at the time. Having noticed a shift in his mother, he'd come to get help from me, his old teacher. "Teacher, my mom, something isn't right," he said. I was trying to imagine what he told me about his home life in his shaky voice. His mom was acting more and more unstable. There was less and less trust. He felt alone because he couldn't ask for help. I asked him, "Is there anything I can do?" I could never have predicted that asking him that would completely turn my life around. Now, I'm in the visiting room at the prison. Under the harsh fluorescent lights, Katie was weeping. "Teacher, please take care of Daniel," she begged. I finally made up my mind, taking a long, deep breath before doing so. I made a commitment to take care of him until he was back on his feet again. I vowed that I would get better and I'd become a good enough mom to see my son again. Those weren't false words, I truly meant them. Katie behaved exceptionally well during her time in jail, and she was very dedicated to the rehabilitation programs. She continued to study and got certified as a counselor. When she got out, she began helping people struggling with addiction. She based her support on her own lived experiences. Yet that temporary care ended up being a hidden truth that went on and on. Daniel became completely consumed by his career, and he excelled at architecture. He was known as a fantastic architect around where we live. He'd strive to be perfect, which sometimes left his coworkers a bit puzzled. He ended up marrying Amanda, and from the outside they seemed to have crafted a perfect family life. Amanda worked hard to increase the people following her on social media. She was always posting happy pictures using the hashtag #PerfectFamily. Plus, she took part in charities, and everyone in town thought she was great. But I could see it plain as day, the rage and suspicion that were hidden inside my son, also what Amanda was really like. Her almost unhealthy obsession with perfection, which was all tied up in social media's fake facade. And the most significant part was how my grandson, Noah, had changed recently. During our weekly Sunday dinners, when the smell of pot roast would fill the entire house, I would quietly study the family photographs. As time went on, Noah's smile had been fading. My previously lively grandson seemed to have become introverted when he was around his parents. This evening, the full explanation for that shift came out in a harsh manner. This all stemmed from a compassionate choice made 15 years prior. I backed my mother by offering her a path to recovery, but Sarah was now painfully aware that the consequences were far too severe. The cicadas kept chirping their song outside. The present and the past seemed to merge in that sticky evening air. I realized I needed to make a fresh decision. The next day, a children's services car from Franklin County inconspicuously pulled up in front of the Wilson house, located in a nicer section of Columbus. It was 10 in the morning. Amanda was preoccupied with the preparations for an upcoming charity event. Today, I intended to do a live stream to give an update on the fundraising endeavors we had for kids from disadvantaged backgrounds. Speaking to my audience, in my customary warm manner, I held my phone up. Across the screen, a multitude of viewers were already posting comments. As the screen filled with heart emojis, the doorbell chimed. "Just 1 sec," I told them all. As I opened the door, I saw 2 investigators and a court-appointed representative standing on the porch. "Are you Amanda Wilson?" they inquired. "We are here from Franklin County Children's Services." At that instant, my phone fell out of my hand. Though the screen remained intact, the live video feed continued. The facade of a flawless family was beginning to crumble. "What's going on?" I asked them. I remember how the investigator responded with a detached tone to Amanda's scared question. The official said they'd gotten some reports about abuse involving our son, Noah Wilson, and that's why they were there. Suddenly, the comments started blowing up. What was going on? What was actually happening? Could this abuse really be true? Was our perfect family just a total facade? The investigation team, sent by the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, sprung into action right away, but they were also very cautious. Noah was taken from his daycare and immediately put into protective custody, then taken to a temporary shelter. Another team was sent directly to Daniel's job. Around that same time, Sarah got a phone call. It was Katie on the other end, saying, "It's me." She explained she'd be landing at Columbus Airport in an hour. It was a reunion after 15 long years. Even so, we both knew it wouldn't be a happy one. On social media, events unfolded quicker than we could even imagine. Amanda's live stream was being rapidly shared, and people started closely examining all of her old posts. There was a sense of unease in the photos of our seemingly ideal family. Noah's facial expressions were different, and occasionally there were hints of questionable bruises. Then sponsorship termination notices started arriving. The notices stated that our company doesn't accept any type of child abuse, and because this was such a serious issue, they were immediately ending our contract. Amanda's income from social media, which provided the majority of what we made each year, started shrinking at an alarming rate. And at the construction company, Daniel was absolutely furious. He wanted to know who did this. "I've been wondering who snitched on us." When he slammed his desk, the noise reverberated through the entire office. His coworkers just stared, absolutely stunned because they'd never witnessed him like this before. Later that day, the Columbus news outlets devoted a lot of time to the incident. They ran a story about the parenting influencer pair being investigated for possible child abuse. It was all about what was hidden beneath the surface of their seemingly ideal online family. Then that evening, Katie Morrison finally saw her son after a whole 15 years. At the Franklin County Children's Services office, she was getting ready to start the process of proposing how the family could be put back together, using her skills as a senior counselor. She was a mom who had managed to beat opioid addiction and now helped others do the same. Seeing her, there immediately sent a wave of emotions crashing over Daniel. The counseling room at Franklin County Children's Services was filled with gentle sunlight. There were walls painted a pale, off-white color, cozy wooden furniture, and some plants sitting by the window. The atmosphere felt carefully crafted to contain the emotional turmoil that was about to erupt. Daniel, Amanda, Katie, and Sarah, who was a licensed clinical social worker, all sat down together. The glasses of water remained untouched on the table. "I'd like to be the one to get started," Katie said, her voice carrying the burden of those long 15 years. "I battled my addiction and have spent all this time just waiting. Each year I sent you gifts anonymously on your birthday, and I would get updates about you through Sarah." Daniel's face became expressionless. "So what? You ceased being my mom 15 years back when you walked out on me." "That's not right, Daniel," Sarah interjected. "Back then Be quiet." Daniel's furious tone reverberated throughout the space. "You're all deceiving me. I can't put my faith in anyone." Amanda cried softly, holding her phone tightly. The screen displayed notice after notice of contracts being ended. It was like I could almost hear the sound of her perfect fantasy life falling apart. "I only attempted to be an ideal mother," I said. Katie quietly disagreed with those words, shaking her head slightly. "There's no such thing as faultless parents. We all mess up. The real test is whether we can learn from our slip-ups and adapt." Her words, informed by her years of experience, were quite powerful. "I'm genuinely sorry that I caused you pain." Katie's voice was shaky. "But causing those same hurts on your son, Noah, as fresh scars is completely unacceptable." Sarah dabbed at her tears as she kept speaking. "My decisions were not the right ones. What I thought was helping you ended up producing new unhappiness. I was avoiding the truth." Amanda murmured, seeming to contemplate what she'd done for the first time. "I was obsessed with creating a flawless image of myself on social media. I was so wrapped up in that, I missed the fact that my son was hurting." Just then, a rapping sound came from the doorway, and the court representative stepped inside. "Noah's temporary placement has been officially determined. While we await the judge's decision, supervised visits will be arranged, under the supervision of grandmother Sarah." Daniel tried to strongly oppose this choice. But Katie's words then immediately stopped his growing rage for a moment. "Daniel, you've accomplished so much, becoming a well-regarded architect. Although you've ignored all the damage in your heart for far too long. The time to fix those things is now." The sunlight of that evening poured into the room where counseling was taking place. The conversation in that room was meant to be the fresh start for a family who had caused pain and had also been hurt. It was now autumn, 3 months down the line. The colorful fall foliage swirled around in Sarah's backyard. "Grandma, this leaf is so pretty." Noah's happy voice echoed throughout the yard. As he started his new life under protective custody, the energy that was just natural for him was slowly returning. Today was scheduled as a day for a supervised visit. Daniel and Amanda were there to see him, under the careful watch of a court-appointed social worker. The earlier stress had lessened, replaced by a growing sense of hope. "Come on, Noah. Let's pick some tomatoes together." Sarah took her grandson's tiny hand and walked him over to the vegetable garden. The plants they had set in the spring now bore plentiful fruit. "Could Daddy and Mommy help us too?" Despite some momentary uncertainty at Noah's simple question, they joined him in the garden. Katie was there as well, acting as the counselor. Her expertise in the field was essential in helping the family to heal. Working with the dirt can be very therapeutic. Amanda offered a little nod at Katie's statement. Having completely disconnected from social media and started helping out at the local garden, I began to feel genuine kindness and closeness outside of the online sphere. Daniel kept going to trauma therapy twice a week. Dealing with the things that happened in his childhood and figuring out his behaviors was tough. But after getting to know some other dads in the first community church support group who'd gone through similar things, he slowly started to become more open. "Noah, those tomatoes did great." Daniel's tone didn't sound as harsh as it used to. Now there was a kind of clumsy softness to it. Half a year later, a little barbecue party was happening in Sarah's backyard before Christmas. "Grandma," Katie spun around when Noah called. Somehow he'd just naturally gotten used to having 2 grandmothers. The court-ordered visits were nearing their end. Things were moving forward so that the family could be back together. "This sausage is amazing." When I saw Amanda's authentic smile, I could feel tears welling up. The fake perfection was gone, replaced by a real sense of connection. Daniel and Katie were chatting quietly near the grill. It would still take a while to fill that gap from the lost years. Even so, they were starting to become close. It wasn't perfect, but here was the beginnings of a real family. As it got dark, they got together to take a family picture under the oak tree. The location that had once seen terrible things had now transformed into a reminder of healing. I decided to capture a family picture beneath the old oak. That spot, once the backdrop for painful memories, had become a haven, a place of peace. The camera flashed, and everyone's faces lit up with genuine joy. The resulting photo showed a family, though scarred, determined to heal from what they'd experienced. We weren't trying to be the ideal family anymore, and we weren't hiding from our history any longer. We were just trying to progress, slowly but surely, in this specific space together. The new plants in Sarah's garden would soon burst with life when spring arrived. And it felt like our family was also entering a fresh chapter.